What if I told you that millions of people are living a horror story so terrifying, it makes the scariest movie look like a children's bedtime story? And the most chilling part? You might be living it right now. You wake up every morning, and before your feet even hit the floor, you're already putting on a costume. Not clothes, something far more sinister. You're putting on a face that isn't yours. A smile that doesn't belong to you. A voice that says I'm fine when everything inside you is screaming. This isn't fiction. This isn't some supernatural thriller. This is the daily reality for millions of people living what psychologists call masking, and it's one of the most genuinely terrifying experiences a human being can endure. But here's what makes this horror story different from anything Hollywood could dream up. The monster isn't hiding under your bed or lurking in the shadows. The monster is wearing your face. The science behind the mask. Let's talk about what's really happening here, because the research is absolutely staggering. Dr. Brené Brown's groundbreaking work on authenticity, published in her book Daring Greatly, reveals that when we consistently hide our true selves, our brains literally start treating us like strangers. Think about that for a second. Your own mind begins to reject you. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who regularly suppress their authentic emotions experience what researchers call identity erosion. Your sense of self doesn't just fade, it gets actively dismantled, piece by piece, until you're genuinely unsure who you are when no one's watching. But here's where it gets truly terrifying. The Canadian Mental Health Association's recent research on masking revealed something that sent chills down my spine. People who mask their mental health struggles for extended periods report feeling like they're haunted by their own reflection. They look in the mirror and see a stranger. They hear their own voice saying I'm fine and feel like they're listening to someone else speak. Dr. Susan David, a Harvard psychologist and author of Emotional Agility, describes this phenomenon as emotional ghosting, where you become a ghost in your own life. You're present, you're functioning, people see you, but you're not really there. The real you is trapped somewhere else, screaming silently while this imposter lives your life. And here's the part that makes this a true horror story. The longer you wear the mask, the harder it becomes to take off. It starts to fuse with your skin. The boundary between who you are and who you're pretending to be becomes so blurred that removing the mask feels like it would tear your face off entirely. But isn't the mask protecting us? Now, you might be thinking, wait, but isn't masking sometimes necessary? Isn't it just survival? And honestly, you're not wrong. This is where the story gets even more complex and, frankly, more disturbing. The research shows that masking often begins as a legitimate survival mechanism. Dr. Krista Neff's work on self-compassion reveals that many people start masking in childhood as a response to environments where showing vulnerability led to rejection, punishment, or harm. The mask isn't evil, it's trying to protect you. Some argue that in a world full of judgment, stigma, and genuine dangers to mental health disclosure, the mask is actually the hero of the story. A 2020 study in the Journal of Mental Health found that people who disclosed mental health struggles at work were 37% more likely to experience discrimination. The mask whispers, I'm keeping you safe, I'm keeping you employed, I'm keeping you loved. And sometimes, it's right. Sometimes the world really isn't safe for your authentic self. Sometimes showing your true face would genuinely cost you relationships, opportunities, or security. The mask looks at you with those hollow eyes and says, look what happened the last time you took me off. Look how they looked at you. Look how they left. This is what makes masking such a perfect horror story. The monster is simultaneously destroying you and protecting you. It's like being trapped in a house that's on fire, but the only exit leads to a pack of wolves. Do you stay and burn, or do you run toward the teeth? Living in the liminal space. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. What if the goal isn't to destroy the mask entirely, but to learn to live with it consciously? What if the real horror isn't the mask itself, but the fact that we've forgotten we're wearing it? Dr. Dan Siegel's research on integration suggests that healing doesn't come from eliminating parts of ourselves, but from bringing them into conscious relationship with each other. The mask stops being a monster when it becomes a choice rather than a compulsion. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing both faces, your authentic self and your protective mask, and being able to choose which one to wear based on the situation, rather than having the mask choose for you. Imagine the mask saying, I'm here if you need me, but you don't have to disappear anymore. The Canadian Mental Health Association's #Unmasking Mental Health campaign isn't actually about throwing away all masks, it's about reclaiming the power to decide when and how to wear them. It's about transforming from a victim in your own horror story into the director of it. Some of the most powerful moments in horror films aren't when the monster is destroyed, but when the protagonist finally looks it in the eye and says, "I see you. I understand why you're here. But I'm not afraid of you anymore." The collective mass. But here's the plot twist that makes this story even more chilling. We're not just wearing individual masks. We're living in a society that's wearing a collective mask about mental health. We all pretend that everyone else is fine while we're secretly struggling, creating this massive, shared delusion. Think about it. When someone asks how are you, in passing, they're not actually asking. They're performing a social ritual that requires you to put on your mask and respond with the scripted line, "I'm fine, how are you?" We're all actors in this bizarre play where everyone pretends to be okay while privately falling apart. The real horror isn't individual masking, it's the fact that we've created a culture where masking feels mandatory, where authenticity feels dangerous, where saying "actually, I'm struggling" feels like confessing to a crime. But what if one person in the theater decided to break character? What if someone responded to "how are you" with actual honesty? What if they said, "You know what? I'm not fine, I'm struggling, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not"? That person would be terrifying to everyone else in the theater. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're real. And reality is the most frightening thing of all when you've been living in a performance for so long. Consciousness. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. I want you to look in the mirror tonight and ask yourself a question that might genuinely scare you. Who am I when no one is watching? If you can answer that question immediately, clearly, without hesitation, then you might be one of the lucky ones who hasn't lost themselves to the mask. But if you pause, if you feel uncertain, if you realize you've been wearing a performance for so long that you've forgotten what's underneath, then welcome to the horror story. But remember, every good horror story is really about transformation. It's about facing the thing that terrifies you most and discovering you're stronger than you thought. The mask isn't your enemy. It's a part of your story. But you get to decide whether you're the victim or the hero of that story. And if you're ready to start taking off the mask, even just for a few minutes a day, even just when you're alone, that's not just brave. That's revolutionary. Because in a world full of masks, authenticity isn't just personal healing, it's an act of rebellion.